everyone, and welcome to Ask the Treksperts, the show where we usually answer your questions about Star Trek. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Sarah.
And I say usually because today we're going to answer a question that's not about Star Trek. Today we're going to talk about science fiction franchises that are not Star Trek that we happen to enjoy. I'm not mentioning anybody's specific names because we've gotten this question a lot over the last several months by lots of different people, so we thought we'd go ahead and finally tackle this. Today, Sarah and I are going to do this as a list video, and each of us has listed out our 5 favorite science fiction franchises, or at least what we thought were our favorites at the time we wrote the list.
Yes.
And these are television and film franchises. So, the criteria for what we put on the list are, A, things that are franchises. So it has to be a series. A movie series or a television series, but there must be multiple entries.
Yes.
So that's the first thing. And it's not important if all of it is as good as the first one, but there need to be more in it, and it has to, you have to pick it as a franchise. The second thing is we chose not to put Star Wars on the list. That's the one caveat. We decided at the beginning we're not going to use Star Wars at all. We thought it might be that's kind of the obvious choice. The original trilogy at least is one of the most amazing franchises ever made, and it's kind of obvious pretty much. I would assume pretty much everybody would have that on the list. So we decided not to put it on there. I think it's also really difficult to classify. Some people, including myself, don't like to call it science fiction. I think it has its roots a lot more in fantasy. But that's not to take away from its brilliance. I just thought, it's hard to classify and it's obvious. So I decided let's just go ahead and not put it on the list.
Yeah, it's just understood that we both like it.
Yeah, a lot. And then if it was on the list, it would probably also be high on the list. So
yeah.
So nothing against Star Wars fans. We didn't choose it because it was obvious.
Yes.
At least the original trilogy.
Yes, emphasis on original trilogy.
And that's about it. Those are the criteria.
Yeah.
Easy enough. Are you ready?
I think so.
How hard was this for you?
Extremely. I am not big into TV or movies as far as... I have a very small set of movies and TV shows that I really, really like, and not all of them are science fiction, so finding 5 that I could put on a list and say, I love these ones, or at least like to go back and watch these over and over again, was kind of difficult.
Well, I mean, you really know your Star Trek.
Yeah, I know my Star Trek, and I've seen Star Wars a whole lot, and I've seen a couple of these things on my list a whole lot, and other of these on my list I've seen a couple times.
Enough to put it on there.
Enough to put it on here.
Alright.
Yeah.
Well, are you ready to roll?
Yes.
Let's start with your list. Sarah, what is number 5 on your list of favorite science fiction properties that are not Star Trek?
Okay, number 5 on my list is something I have seen tons and tons of times, especially when I was a kid. It is Back to the Future.
Back to the Future. All
yes.
right. I considered it.
Yeah. Well,
I thought about it.
It's all 3 movies are good. Some are better than others, I would argue. But they're good, and I've seen them tons and tons of times, and they're classics.
Well, obviously, I like Back to the Future. I just did a commentary on it a couple weeks ago with Tim Lyons and Brandon Grimm, and yeah, I know it really well. I love it a lot.
Yeah.
It didn't make my list, but I certainly thought about it.
Yeah.
I think that Back to the Future is one of the best science fiction comedies. Not to take away from the drama in those movies, because it's there. I think that the time travel is really interesting in Back to the Future, and it's kind of fun to both point out the parts where it's really clever and the parts where it kind of doesn't work.
Yeah, and the characters are really likable. Yeah,
really likable. That's the thing, is that what makes that series great is not that it's science fiction.
Yeah, it's just that it's a good movie. It's a good, fun movie. You put it in with your family or whatever.
And I'm not calling...
You eat some popcorn.
I'm not calling science fiction bad.
No.
That's in it. You see what I'm saying? I'm just saying that's not what makes those movies great.
It's not what it's about.
Which is the reason that
it's not trying to make this big science fiction point. It's just a good movie.
I mean, it does to a degree where it deals with, we just the kind of superficial bit of we shouldn't mess with the past, and then when you get to the end of 3, the idea that the future is whatever you make it. But it's not even a science fiction concept so much as just a human idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Okay.
Your number 5.
Number 5 on my list is The Matrix, and I have to say that the problem with this is that it's not great as a franchise entirely.
It's surprising to me that it is so low on your list, though.
Well, that's the thing, is that I love The Matrix, but I don't love The Matrix trilogy enough to put it any further up the list, because as a whole, well, the thing is, the first film was a whole. That's the problem, is that it made a bunch of money, and they made more, and they had to... Merovingian. Look, the sequel has some great stuff in it. It's just that they had to completely depower Neo to make it work. Yeah. And that hurts it quite a bit for me.
Yeah. If you want to be critical or something.
If you have... Oh, I'm sorry. Well, if you'd like me to not be critical, then I'll say, it's amazing! It has these great action scenes where there's the truck that flips over and things.
And it's so awesome.
And it's so awesome. No, and it does, and it is really fun, and it makes me talk like that whenever I watch it. But no, it doesn't. But and I love the Merovingian, and I like a lot, and the Keymaster is great. The Keymaster, is that it? I forget now. It's been a while since I've seen it. Well, it's not Ghostbusters. What's it? The Keymaker.
Yeah,
because he makes keys.
All the keys.
Yes. Anyway, I don't know what I'm talking about.
He's looking for the gatekeeper.
The Matrix, once again, is good science fiction. It's also really interesting how it plays with classic ideas of philosophy. Yeah. And philosophy experts have written papers on the Matrix. There's a couple of philosophy experts that have actually gotten box sets released of the Matrix with their commentaries on them, and it's really interesting. There's a lot of great ideas in that. The characters are archetypes. I mean, they're not the most the full-blown real people ever, but that's not what it's about. Yeah,
but it's such a stylized film, and it's meant to be so stylized that it's just, that's how it's effective.
Yeah, it's what's it called? It's steampunk, and not steampunk.
Space punk. Or no, not. Sorry.
Did you just say space punk?
Yes,
There's no space in that. What are we talking about?
Well, it's all dark outside in the future.
I don't know. Cyberpunk. Thank you. I got steampunk in my brain, and I went to a convention over the summer where I saw some people cosplaying steampunk.
Yeah.
And it was fantastic, and my mind went to that, and I couldn't think of cyberpunk. Yeah. Anyway,
okay.
It's one of the better depictions of cyberpunk on film. Anyway, okay.
I want to make space punk.
Space punk. All right, number 4.
Okay, number 4. Tron.
Tron!
Yes.
Well done. I didn't think of Tron. Now, I would never put Tron on my list because I don't like Tron Legacy.
Well, it's okay. It's a totally different movie than the original, and it's a totally different thing.
And it's not really good science fiction, and it's really cookie cutter plot wise.
No, but it was still kind of fun. But
I
put this down mostly. It's number 4.
Yeah. And nothing against people who like Tron Legacy. It's just, and I'm not saying that I completely dislike it. I enjoyed it. It's a fun ride.
And I liked it better than you did.
Oh well, people said that. But people said that about Matrix Revolutions too. So, or not? No, I'm sorry, Matrix Reloaded. No one said Matrix Revolutions was a great ride. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Anyway,
any show where Wesley Crusher saves the Enterprise is automatically Dr. Finley.
Wesley Crusher does save the Enterprise at the end of Matrix Revolution. And then I was sitting here. You can believe this on this show. I was sitting here going, I don't know if anybody's going to get that reference. Oh yeah, it's a show about Star Trek. Okay, I forgot. Yeah. I don't know where I am. Where am I?
You're in the Tron machine.
I thought I was in Space Punk. Anyway, I'm sorry. Talk about Tron.
In Space Punk, nobody can hear you scream.
so talk about Tron.
Tron is awesome, and I like all of the special effects, even though a lot of people don't think they hold up, but they're awesome.
I think they hold up because it's so stylized.
Yes, that's
it's a different way of doing it. You can look at special effects in 2 ways. You can say, well, we can do it better now, or you can say what it looks like using the computers the way they used them at the time. You couldn't do now with the way we generally make things.
Yeah, and I think the original Tron was actually more stylized, and the special effects and everything in it worked better for the movie that they were making than the
Legacy.
Effects in Legacy.
Well, Legacy takes me out a little bit because of the kind of effects they're using. But anyway, I'm sorry. I don't want to just sit here and Legacy bash.
Okay.
I've only seen it the one time, so.
Yeah, no, I'd like to see it again. I've only seen it the once, but yeah, I like Tron. So, what's your number 4?
Number 4 on my list is the Stargate franchise.
Okay.
Again, maybe I should have put this higher.
Yeah.
Here's the thing about Gate. I've not seen enough Gate to really talk a whole lot about it. I have seen all of Atlantis. I did at one point go on Netflix and just binge watch Atlantis, which I absolutely loved, except, I don't know, I liked the earlier seasons a little bit more than the later in some ways, but I don't know, Atlantis was a really fun idea to me. I mean, I like SG-1 too, I just haven't seen enough of it.
Yeah.
But Atlantis had a great bad guy species with the Wraith, regardless of the fact that after a while it seemed like every other episode somebody was getting kidnapped, put in their ships, talking about how hard it is to escape, and then escaping immediately. And after a while, I just kind of, they lost their sting a little bit for me. But it had characters I liked more than SG-1. It also had Robert Picardo in the last couple seasons, and that was great. Or was it just the... I mean, he appears every so often.
See, but... I was so tempted. I guess I wasn't tempted because I couldn't put it on here. But I really wanted to put Stargate on my list.
You just haven't seen enough of it.
Because I love the movie. And I've seen, like, the first half of the first season of SG-1, and I thought it was good so far. But... I really can't say that, I love this franchise because there's so much of it and I've seen so little, but I love the movie.
The thing about SG-1 is that you can't really base a whole lot on first season just because, and I mean, it's okay, but it's safe, when you get, the pilot's a little edgy, but then it gets kind of safe, and I love what you always complained about. Sarah would always go, "Why is it that in the pilot they make this really well?" I don't want to say your point for you. You make the point.
Okay, here's my thing with SG-1 so far as I've gotten. Okay, in the pilot, so these people get kidnapped, and it's a big deal because they're people's loved ones. And you'd think that, okay, they got kidnapped, let's go look for them and rescue them.
Well, the end of the first episode feels like a ticking time bomb.
Yeah, you're like gonna get into 24 or something. Well,
like, I wouldn't go that far, but yeah, but
like you're gonna go after them and try to hunt through
space. We're gonna run through every Stargate trying to find these people.
Exactly.
And what I thought the setup was is whenever we go into a gate, we look around a minute and go, nope, they're not here, and then we go find another planet.
Yeah, and maybe you get held up for a while because a story happens,
right?
Or something, But
you hate it when it's just like, now there's a story. And we have to sit around and have a character arc and be part of it and have conflicts and an opportunity for change. I hate it when that happens.
I hate that too. But no, what happens is second episode they go and they just go exploring and we've forgotten all about the kidnapped people.
Yeah, it just feels like TLS and Stargate.
Yay, it's places we've never been. Let's go find cool things.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it wasn't that the episodes were bad, it was just that the premise seemed to split and take a U-turn.
I've seen, for some reason, in that show a lot of random episodes just all the way around it, and it gets edgier as it goes along.
Okay, I was going to ask if anybody ever went looking for...
Oh, yeah, and that gets cleared up pretty early in the series, of course, and what they do is they start really pushing envelopes, they start really doing some different sorts of things that you haven't necessarily seen before. What I really like about Stargate is that they're not afraid of Star Trek tech. They're not afraid of stealing Star Trek tech.
Yeah.
Because the stuff that Trek made up that didn't exist yet, or that we didn't have a great name for yet, that Trek gave us a name for, there's no reason to start calling it something else unless it's copyrighted and you can't get around it. So, there's a species that has transporters, and then eventually humans just have transporters, and they just call them that. They're transporters, and they say, we're beaming you, and we're transporting you, and they're not afraid of that, and they make fun of Star Trek on that show all the flippin' time.
Yeah.
It's anyway.
Yeah. And it's fun.
I think that that show had the best mix. Both Atlantis and SG-1 had the best mix of comedy and drama. Until you get to Universe, and I've seen the first season of Universe and enjoyed it. I mean, I liked a lot of the stories, and I think that in some ways it's actually got some better science fiction concepts than even some stuff I saw in Atlantis. But the problem with it is that it was trying too hard to be Battlestar Galactica. I kept thinking Babylon 5. Battlestar Galactica. By the way, Battlestar I didn't put on my list, even though I really like it. I came close. It probably would have been 6. It's just that it was so depressing.
Yeah.
My heart slumped every time I watched that show.
Yeah.
It was great and it was brutal. It would be like putting 24 on a list of anything, which would be kind of I love 24, but it's tough because it takes so much out of you to watch it.
Yeah.
That's maybe not fair. Maybe I should have listed it, but I certainly, just so everybody knows, I like that show. I thought about it.
Yes. There are shows we like that didn't make the list.
I should also probably mention
because we only listed 5.
that I didn't put Bab 5 on this list because I have, no one lynched me, never seen it, and I just haven't been able to get my hands on it. Eric has been begging me to watch Babylon 5 for years and years and years. He freaking loves that show. It's one of his favorite things ever, and he told me once that it was on Netflix, and I think for a while it was, and by the time I finally got to where I was about to watch it, it was gone, and I just haven't, bought the sets or anything. So anyway, that's why I haven't seen Babylon 5, so...
Yep, and I will watch it with you as soon as you get your hands on it.
Yeah, I mean, it's got some Trek writers, and it's also got some Trek alum in it, and it's J.J. Abrams. Oh, why did I do that? JMS, J. Michael Straczynski. That was his baby. And JMS pitched a Star Trek show a few years ago, and I really wish that he had gotten it because he's the next guy I would have wanted to have that franchise.
Yeah, he's a good writer.
Anyway, sorry, I got sidetracked because people have asked me about Babylon 5, so I'm going to go ahead and throw that out there.
Okay, yeah.
What's your next one?
My next one is Twilight Zone.
Twilight Zone!
Yes,
Yay.
Twilight Zone. I have not seen all of it, of course.
Yeah, I haven't either.
Lots and lots, and until Netflix happened, you really couldn't find it very many places. So, yeah, I've seen about maybe 24, maybe around there, episodes, and liked most of them, and anytime it shows up on the TV, I sit down and watch it. I love the O. Henry endings. They're just great. They're so minimalistic. You just got this one little plot, and the characters work within it, and then you're like, oh no, what's going to happen? And then something crazy happens at the end.
And it showcased the very best actors at the time.
Oh, yeah. Everybody was in Twilight Zone.
Twilight Zone tells you how to make a show with very little.
Yes.
And that's what was so brilliant about it.
Yeah.
Is that they had the writing. I mean,
if you have a good
Rod
script,
Serling was a genius.
You'll make a good episode, no matter how big your budget is.
Well, and if you have a good script and you have the right talent, and I think that what happened with that show is that all the money went for the talent.
Yeah.
And that's how you do it.
Yeah.
Nobody cared when the backgrounds were really minimalistic and when the whole episode happened in a single room. And those are some of the better episodes of that show.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Is the ones that take place in a single place.
You remember the one with Burgess Meredith.
Yeah. Well, don't say the one because he was in like 3.
Well, the one that I saw that I loved.
Yeah. And I don't
in like one room.
I don't speak episode title with Twilight Zone, and I wish I did because it had brilliant episode titles. But that one is, in case you haven't seen it, it's definitely, I think, my favorite. Sorry, Jason's here with. That episode is Burgess Meredith. He's gotten too old, which is really ironic.
Yeah, and he has a job that's no longer considered valuable in society.
That episode was made in, like, I want to say that was one, like, in the late 50s, and Burgess Meredith lived to be in films in the early 90s.
He was Rocky.
Already playing old people.
He was in Rocky.
Well,
that was later.
Yeah, he was in Grumpy Old Men. He was actually in both Grumpy Old Men. I think he died right after Grumpy Old Men.
Yeah. He got to be really old. But it seemed like he looked old for 50 years.
He was playing old people. Well, the Penguin looked old.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, so yeah, he's being put on trial for not being useful anymore. And it hit me in a place.
Yeah.
It really hit me in a place. If you've ever loved a grandparent, that really hits you in a place.
Yeah.
Well, anyway.
Yep,
I guess I'll go for my next one. My number 3 is Serenity and Firefly.
I knew that would be on your list.
Yeah, well, how could it not for me? I love. I honestly, I'm not sure there's anything to say about Serenity and Firefly. If you haven't watched that, you need to. What's wrong with you? Firefly is great because it didn't need aliens. That's one of the things that's really cool about it, is that they spread people across the galaxy. And any time you met somebody, they were humans, and you didn't have to make any kind of explanation as to how everybody was speaking the same language and all that kind of stuff. But they did do some language stuff in that, because part of the idea behind it was that when the Earth got to its worst place, a lot of people were speaking Chinese, and so they actually do a lot of interesting language things there. And one of the things that's kind of fun about Firefly and Serenity is that it has its own. Everybody has their own unique way of speaking in that show, because it occurred to Whedon that, well, if you have a future like this, people aren't necessarily going to speak the way they do now. So what I'll do is I'll do this interesting blend of kind of modern vernacular with something that sounds more old school, and it's almost as if we, like, our language de-evolved to a point.
Yeah.
Kind of. Where it's like, they speak a little bit more old-fashioned to a point. But then they'll still say stuff that we say now. Yeah. But then they have their own colloquialisms also, and some of that is the Chinese thing where they'll just break into Chinese randomly. So yeah, the culture in that show is absolutely fascinating, and I think that was probably my favorite thing about it. And I loved every character in that show.
Yeah.
I just loved everybody in that show. And River is such a fascinating character, just all by herself. And the film is just genius because Whedon got where he wanted to get for the next 2 seasons that didn't get made because Fox is made of wrong. In a film, in 2 hours, and effectively, and not too and not
you're
too
able
rushed.
to watch it on its own. And
I wasn't.
I was.
I wasn't. I'm not going to go that far. I enjoyed it, but I didn't know what I was watching. I also found Serenity to be a lot more depressing without watching Firefly.
But if you watch it the second time, and pay attention, and after you know where it's going, it's a lot less depressing, and you know the characters better.
It is, but I didn't catch all the comedy without watching Firefly because there's too many callbacks to that series. Not that there are like direct callbacks like constantly to just things that happen in that show, but you've already been with those characters for 13 episodes and you know who they are and the kinds of things that they're likely to do. And so like things like Wash, like playing with dinosaurs and the dashboard and stuff. I didn't get that was supposed to be funny until I knew who Wash was watching the show, and then I got things like that. And then even the whole bit with like the piece of the ship falling off at the beginning and then it comes back at the end. The ship was constantly falling apart in the series. And so like all those elements were there. But it plays more like a tribute to a show you've never seen if you haven't watched the show, with a really, really good story and one of the best villains I've seen in a science fiction film ever. It's anyway. I'd like to at some point do some Firefly videos. Either just going through that series. Well, it's 13 episodes. I could probably do a whole series on it. Just go through them. But anyway, so I'm going to quit talking about it now because I could talk about it all day. But anyway, so yeah, I have to put that on there. Yes. 2.
Number 2. Yes. For me, The Matrix.
The Matrix. Wow, that's higher on your list than I thought it would be.
Yeah, I love.
But that's because you like the sequels better than I do.
I do like the sequels a lot better than you do. Yeah. Besides the cave sequence. Underground.
The rave cave?
The rave cave.
Yeah. The rave cave.
Besides that, the second movie is awesome.
Maybe the only thing The Matrix has in common with Smallville is that it has a rave cave. Well, anyway.
Wow. Okay, but I love The Matrix.
We didn't mention the Oracle, which is probably my other favorite part about The Matrix.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Oracle's great.
I think the one thing that 2 really, really has going for it is, just talking about it as a franchise, is the idea of multiple Agent Smiths.
Yes.
Because that's just super, super cool.
Yes.
Any way you slice it.
Yes. And the ghosty guys.
And it had a fantastic cliffhanger. I'm not sure I love how it was resolved, but a wonderful cliffhanger.
That number 2 doesn't hold up so well is because number 3 was so disappointing.
And because it did have to contradict some premise stuff with the first
one. Well, it does,
but
you can forgive a movie if making it into a trilogy becomes also pretty much brilliant. If you get 2 good ones, but you have to tweak some things to make one actually work as their
I'm not
sequels.
sure what Reloaded would have had to have done for me to consider it brilliant. I'm not sure I could have ever done that, but yeah.
Yeah. I think if the follow-up to the cliffhanger had been awesome, it would have been. It could have been. I don't know.
Yeah. If it had ended up being a Matrix within a Matrix like it should have been, that would have helped.
Yeah.
I have always been in the camp that says, as soon as Neo puts his hand up and that robot falls down, you're like, okay, well now he can like cause things to happen in the real world and in the Matrix. We must be in another Matrix.
Yeah.
And then that wasn't what it was, and I was like, oh, so there's no explanation, and it's not as interesting as the thing I and 1,000 other people came up with.
Yeah. So.
Probably more than 1,000, to be honest with you. I think a lot of people thought that.
Yeah.
Oh.
But I think they're still fun to watch.
My number 2, Lost.
Lost. Good show.
I don't know that I have anything else to say.
Besides Lost.
Yeah, I just got through going back through watching Lost again, and I nothing else has ever been and will ever be like Lost on television.
Yeah.
oh, people tried right after it. Remember the event? People attempted it. But yeah, you can't. That's not a formula. You can't make that happen. And what I love about Lost is, again, that show's not good because it's science fiction.
Yeah.
The science fiction helps, and then in some places doesn't.
Yeah.
Because the problem is, see, there's a part of me that almost thinks I shouldn't have put that even on the list, just because a lot of things about the ending make it feel less science fiction than it is. I said let's not put Star Wars on this list, but then you got stuff in Lost, like, and again, hopefully I'm not spoiling this for anybody that's actually trying to watch this show and hasn't seen the end of it.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, you get to the end, and when it's when the big reveal of what has caused everything is pretty much a light in the middle of an island, it starts bending the credibility of the science fiction concepts it was doing earlier in the series, where it felt very rooted in some major sci-fi ideas and science fiction novels, especially in the way it was doing time travel.
Yeah.
And, well, with the exception of the goofiness of the giant pendulum. But no, anyway, that show is, and I put it on the list because it's generally considered sci-fi, and until I got to the end, I thought it was a brilliant science fiction show.
Yeah.
So anyway, some people might call
But this
foul.
show is a little bit of everything.
Some people might call foul for me putting that on there, and fair enough, but I'm sticking to it. But yeah, it's the characters, man. That show has such deep three-dimensional characters that I really became hugely invested in.
Yeah.
And,
Well, it helps that we see their present, past, and future, and
sideways.
and sideways, all at the same time.
Hugo Reyes is a character that I had never seen on screen before.
Yeah.
John Locke is a character I had never seen on screen before.
Yeah.
Jack Shepherd, a little bit of an archetype.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kate, maybe a little bit of an archetype.
Yeah.
Some of those characters, and they became more fleshed out as it went along. But some of them from the very beginning.
We're just
Hugo is a character. Mr. Echo.
Yeah.
Besides the fact that he is that he's the token black guy who seems to know everything, he does have that archetype running for him. But other than that, like the whole idea of the priest who's not really a priest and runs drugs, and I mean, like, this is a guy I've never seen before.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, that's another show I could talk about.
It's a good show. It was really original and fresh.
And Desmond was such a unique character, also.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, I could talk about that one all day too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so pretty much this is just a list of shows that I want to do videos on. You're number one.
Well, I think you could probably guess my number one.
Because I haven't seen it yet, I'm going to say it's Doctor Who.
It is Doctor Who.
Wow, would you believe that didn't make my list?
Yes, for you, yes.
Well, I like it a lot.
You like modern Doctor Who.
I do. Yeah, it's true. I don't care as much for older Doctor Who.
Yeah.
Here's the thing.
I like pretty much all of it.
Real quick, before I will let you talk about Doctor Who.
Yes.
But let me just really quick defend myself with all the people, especially Duke, who just went, "How dare you not like old Doctor Who?"
Defend yourself, player one.
I would read the scripts for those episodes before I would watch them.
Sure.
Because there were some brilliant scripts,
Yes.
especially the ones that I saw by Douglas Adams.
Douglas Adams wrote some good stuff.
That man had such fun ideas.
You still need to watch that, even though you can't really make it through it.
The
Pirate Planet.
The Pirate Planet, yeah.
Yes.
It was production quality, and that's so weird because I mean I'm a TOS fan. I can watch a lot of old science fiction and stuff that's not really that. It was just film quality thing for me. If I don't know what it is about some old British shows, but they again, don't lynch me. It's just they feel to me like they're shot on like home video cameras. I don't know why that bugs me so much. It's almost like I can't get into their world because I feel like it's shot with like a camera that I could have shot in the 90s. Like I don't know. Like I don't mind the tinfoil and the I'm not sure that show ever had tinfoil, but you know what I mean. But that kind of thing, you know what I mean. I don't mind that it looks silly. It's just something about the film quality is my only deal with that.
Yeah.
So anyway, talk about Doctor Who.
Doctor Who's great. I have seen. One of the great things about Doctor Who is that there's so much of it. And so if you don't latch on to one doctor, there's another doctor with a different personality and different kinds of stories, but it's all really good science fiction.
And the continuity is super loose, so you don't have to know anything.
So you don't need to know everything that's happened. You just need to follow the doctor and say, oh, this is the guy who jumps through time and fixes things. That's it. And so the modern stuff is fantastic. If you go back to the Baker years, those are my favorite. But you can go with pretty much any doctor.
And I did like Tom Baker a lot.
Yeah, and they're very good science fiction stories, and it's really real science fiction stories.
It's pretty loose,
but really,
yeah,
really good. Yeah. But that's why I like Doctor Who.
I shouldn't be surprised at that top of your list.
Yeah, because it's an awesome show, and everybody should put it at the top of their list.
Well, I didn't. Can you guess what's at the top of my list?
No.
Okay.
I don't think I can.
Well, I will give you this hint.
Okay.
There is a major thing, and there is a major show that was on your list that you haven't seen on mine yet.
Oh. Twilight Zone?
Twilight Zone.
Really?
Is at the top of my list. Yes,
at the very top.
It's at the very top.
That actually
yeah.
surprises me.
Really? Well, here's the thing. I'm not the most
it's a good show,
Twilight Zone fan of the world, but man,
Yeah.
every time I watch it, I just grin ear to ear.
Yeah.
I think that it is probably for television, I'm going to say for television, the most important science fiction series either ever or next to Star Trek.
Sure.
Like, I would put them like this.
Yeah.
So, now I know that this was supposed to be kind of our list of favorites, but I mean, like, I just don't see putting anything above it.
Yeah.
And I need to watch more of it, you know.
Yeah.
Me too. I've seen several episodes,
but that's another one where there's so much of it.
Not enough that I can talk about it like I'd like to.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's and there's such variety. One of the things is that I like shows I like anthology shows, and I wish we did more of them. Where each week it's a different cast, it's a different story. They're all standalone, but there's something that ties them all together.
Yeah, yeah. Kind of like Hitchcock Presents.
Hitchcock Presents is also
like
great. I love
Yeah.
those kinds of things. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Hitchcock Presents is just like Twilight Zone. It's the horror equivalent of it.
Yeah.
And it also has a lot of non sequitur in it, kind of like it. So there are places where it feels like almost the same show.
Yeah.
Because even though that was supposed to be just kind of horror stories, a lot of Twilight Zone comes off that way.
Yeah.
As just straight up
kind
horror
of
stories.
Freaky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're not all straight science fiction, but a lot of them are.
Yeah.
And again, we could go through and talk about a lot of different shows that we liked, in Twilight Zone. But again, that's a show that I would like to do.
There are
There
are a couple shows in Twilight Zone where
some videos
I don't know if I could watch them again because the ending is so horrible a concept for me personally.
Where it just sticks a person in a place where they never get out of. And...
Yeah. But yeah.
And since this is Treksperts, I should also mention that one of my favorite episodes is a Shatner episode, where Shatner and his wife go into this diner, and they put a coin in a machine that is supposed to tell them the future, and they keep reading these slips of paper of the future, and they can't stop because they keep wanting to know what else it can tell them.
Yeah.
And they become obsessed with it, and that's one of the better episodes, I think.
Well, and then the wife tries to get him to leave, and he's like, well, should I leave now? And the machine's like trying to keep him in the town, and she finally drags him away, trying to get him to realize that his future can't be predicted by this machine, and so they escape. But then, as they leave, there's another couple that's been there, obviously for years,
right?
And they're still putting the coins in and can't leave the town.
That's creepy.
Oh yeah,
there's another one. Speaking of Lost, there's another one with Shatner on an airplane. That one's kind of weird.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen that one.
I don't know if I've seen that one.
Well, anyway, thanks a lot for watching Ask the Treksperts, where today we talked almost not at all about Star Trek.
Yeah.
And next time, we're going to talk about Star Trek.
Because we're Treksperts.
That's right. So I hope you enjoyed this episode about other sci-fi shows that we like. Feel free to list some of your favorites. There's a lot of things, of course, we didn't talk about.
Yeah.
And
because we could only list 5.
And thanks, as always, for watching. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Sarah.
And we'll see you next time.